Lords, very briefly in this group, the noble Lord, Lord Renaud, called this a world-leading policy. It is world-leading because no one else in the world has chosen this policy. One wants to know why. I think at least the noble Lord, Lord Stephen of Birmingham, admitted that this was novel and therefore untested. So can we at least have a little bit of potential humility by admitting that this bill is an experiment? It's a risk. It's a risk about age checking and how you do age verification, as rather wittily described by the noble Lord, Lord Clerk of Nottingham. It's a bit untested how we'll cope with the 84-year-old versus the 85-year-old, whether there'll be a scrap. And just by saying, well, it's not going to happen for too many years. I mean, I did think the idea of legislators was that you were meant to think about the future, not just tomorrow, and the long-term implications of policies that pass. But let's be honest, there's no good practice to copy with this bill. There's no evidence about exactly how it will work or if it will work. And the claims on its behalf are largely based on modelling and speculation, and that's not evidence, it's not scientific. And I do think that therefore sometimes the moral high ground and the sense of certainty that's deployed by those who are enthusiasts for the bill and the disdain with which those of us who are sceptical about the bill are just a little misplaced. I would therefore request that as we go through the very short report stage that we have, because a lot of us have been through a longer committee stage, that we're honest about things like cost-benefit analysis. What's lost? What's gained? Rather than moral righteousness, consider, is this actually fit for purpose, even the purpose of those people who are putting the bill forward? Because I actually think, whatever the intentions of those promoting this bill, many of the clauses in the bill are counterproductive. And I know we're not on this section yet, but just let me say, as an ex-smoker who started vaping, I am utterly distraught that we now have a bill before us that is likely that treats, to all intents and purposes, vaping and tobacco as interchangeable. Despite a denial by the government that's not true, more and more of the clauses as you look at them. So I actually think there won't be the health gain as claimed. And just my final point at this point, because I will be back, is I do think that it's a little rich to sneer about freedom. I mean, I know that saying the word libertarian gives certain people a thrill, that they can kind of feel as though they're kind of morally virtuous. I don't consider myself to be a libertarian, actually, despite what Wikipedia says. I do, however, fully embrace living in a free society. I don't think freedom is something I should be embarrassed about, and I don't think saying that people should be given choices about their lifestyles and about the choices they make in their lives is something that, you know, makes you to the right of Genghis Khan or wherever it is that people are implying, or worse, in the pale big tobacco, which is obviously the inference of a lot of the contributions. What it might mean is that you think that adults, but, you know, the 84 and 85-year-old, by the way, because they do grow up, these kids, to be adults. This bill will affect adults. Lots of adults will be denied a choice at some stage relatively soon. That people can make choices about whether they take risks in their health. I mean, I don't know about you, but I suspect that practically everyone I know is using those weight loss injections. Yeah. Now, to me, it's a bit risky. I'm a bit like, oh, are they safe, right? But I'm not mounting a campaign as yet, because half this house would be out. But, you know, like, we know, I'm prepared to say that people say it's worth the risk. A lot of people do daft things like going skiing. Yeah. Mad. Too risky for me, right? There's all sorts of things. But, you know, people have been known to have the odd extra pint eat the odd greasy breakfast. In other words, people take risks with their health, make choices about their health all the time. I actually do not want more people to smoke. But I also think in a free society, we have to give a certain degree of room for people to make choices, the wrong choices. Because we live in a free society where deciding what the right and the wrong choice is what happens in authoritarian regimes. But in a free society, you say, I don't think you should do that, but I'm not necessarily going to legislate so you can't do everything I personally disapprove of. And even saying you shouldn't do that because I know best for your health what you should and shouldn't do. In medical ethics, there are times when you go to the doctor and they say, take this, and you say, I decline to take that medication. I do not want that intervention. And in a free society, the doctor can't force you to do what you don't want to do. Even the virtuous health profession who we're all meant to revere. So as far as I'm concerned, as we carry on at report stage, can we at least all show a bit of humility that living in a free society puts before us difficult moral decisions. There's no necessarily right and wrong, and we are allowed to scrutinise a bill that's been put before us without being accused of somehow being evil because we don't go along with the bill. And just because the Conservative government and the Labour, when they were in, and the Labour government now agree, I mean, if that's the basis on which we shouldn't scrutinise, then we might as well all go home, because I'm very sad to say that the Conservative Party have had far too much agreement with the Labour Party over recent decades for some of us.
Before she sits down, as a Conservative member when in the other House who voted against this proposition, would she not share my concern that actually one of the unspoken nonsenses of this legislation is that far too many young people are already choosing to smoke cannabis instead of cigarettes that they might legally obtain, which just proves that however you try to legislate, however you try to regulate this market, they will do what they choose to do. And virtually no effort is made to clamp down on illegal smoking of cannabis.
I have to come back, or I'm allowed to come back. Let me just, am I allowed to come back on that?
My Lord.
Interrupt me. Let me just come back for one sentence, which was all I wanted to say was, I do not want it to go down in the Hansard that I support the smoking of cannabis. That I'm such a libertarian because I'm not Zach Polanski. But it is also the case that as we go through, we have to think of the unintended consequences and the real world and real young people rather than imaginary ones.
My Lords,